The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are.
I can tell you from experience, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is.
Don't think, feel. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Digital Communion. I'm Nick Gregoriades. I'm here with my incredibly erudite friend, Thomas Faustin Huskin. And we have some, what I consider to be pretty cool stuff to chat to you about today. But first, a word from our sponsor. Have you tried this stuff? I'm absolutely addicted to it, but it's the Synergy brand of kombucha, and this is a divine grape flavor. It's really, really good. And I wish they were our sponsor. Maybe they could be one day. If anyone's out there listening, please send us a bunch. Thomas,
Yes, sir.
I've been struggling lately. Absolutely struggling with something. And I'm interested to hear your perspectives, your experiences, and also your hopes regarding the following subject. And it's this. I'm at the point with a bunch of projects that are all right at that tipping point where they are either going to be successful or they're not going to work. And for most of these projects, it has been an inordinate amount of hard and stressful work that's got them to this tipping point. And what I'm trying to figure out is this a case of pushing through and continuing to work hard, and in fact redoubling my efforts and working even harder to push them over that point? Or is it time to change tactics and try to get into some kind of flow or use some kind of law of attraction or mental technique or manifestation or trusting the universe or whatever the fuck, you know what I'm talking about. And I have really been struggling with this because I've seen both of those things work. I've seen the hard work thing be successful and achieve a desired outcome, but I've also seen the just put your objective and intention out there and amazing things happen work. And it's almost like in the Bible when Jesus says you need to be either hot or cold, do not be lukewarm or I will spit you out. It feels to me that I'm at the point where I'm being lukewarm and I need to choose which direction to go in. And I know which one I'd rather go in. I'd rather just be the dude who, writes down, I set my intention to have X, Y, Z, and then let's see what the universe does, than the guy who works himself to death for something that may or may not even happen. Talk to me, Kimosabi.
I think the first question you need to ask yourself is, do you believe in what you're doing? And if you don't believe in what you're doing, it becomes twice as hard to give your best effort because you can't stand doing it. So just as a quick example, last year I failed miserably at making a graphic novel out of one of my scripts. And I worked hard on it, probably 6 to 8 hours every day for 3 to 4 months. I got better. I saw progress every single day, but I didn't ever believe that I could do it better than somebody who desperately wanted to make a graphic novel. I was doing it as a way to bypass the industry and not having to sell it to any production studio, right? I was like, well, I'm going to put this story out there and it's going to be awesome and it'll be my piece of art. But I never fully believed in my ability to do that, to honor the material. I thought the story was great, but my art just didn't really match how I wanted the story to go. So they were 6 to 8 hour days, but they felt like 12 to 14 hours. And I was exhausted by them. and I was distraught and disillusioned and disappointed and depressed and all the D words that are negative. And ultimately I abandoned it, and it was really hard to do because I had told a couple of people that that's what I was working on, and my least favorite thing in the world to do is tell somebody about something and not follow through on it. And I've done a very good job since I left my early 20s of doing that and being, because it's, I don't know, it's dumb, it's superficial, but it sort of aligns with integrity, what you think and say and do are all in alignment. So if you don't believe in what you're doing, you will eventually be able to do it, but it won't be the best version of what you're capable of doing. So you kind of have to, the hard lesson I have as the guy that's promoting being a polymath is focusing on one thing at a time and doing it as best as I can. So at the time when I was trying to do the graphic novel, I was also trying to produce a play and making plans for this business that I've been talking about recently, and 2 or 3 other things. And as a result, nothing ever seemed to move beyond a couple of inches every single day. So I think for you, if you have multiple projects, you need to find the one that you really, really care about and do it as good as Nick Grigoriades is capable of doing. Because otherwise you're going to be you don't want to put anything out there now that you're not super proud of,
Agreed. There's 2 things that come to mind while listening to what you just mentioned. The first is a book called The Millionaire Fast Lane, success book. I was just amazed by. I could not stop listening to the audiobook version of it a few months ago. Literally, I must have listened to it 3 or 4 times. And the guy says, do what you love is bullshit. He says that's total bullshit, because if you do what you love, there's 2 things that are going to stand in your way. The first is that it's more likely than not, the thing that you love is something that many other people love. So they're all going to be trying to make a living out of it as well. And unless you're exceptionally good at it, it's going to be hard to stand out. So like his example was, I love playing basketball, but no one's going to pay me to do it. And the second reason he gave was, he said, if you do what you love as your source of income and your business, you endanger the love for that thing, right? Now, you see, this is where this dichotomy or this paradox comes in, because I have seen examples of people who've burnt themselves out doing what they love and just started to hate that thing. But I've also seen examples of people who are still very impassioned and very energized by the things that they've chosen to do, and very well remunerated for doing those things. And I think that the trick is, and I don't think it's something you can answer, or for me, everyone has to. This is the whole thing. This is the hard work, is finding that nexus point where your skills meet the thing that you enjoy, or a thing that you could enjoy or be passionate about, that could also be lucrative, and where timing's on your side, and knowing how to identify that thing and package it and monetize it. And man, that is the skill. That is the hard work.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe I need to revise that answer a little bit. First of all, you're the only one who knows how to get you out of this situation. Number 2, it's better said as, what do you care about the most? You don't have to love it. What do you care about the most? What do you want to do that's great? What's the greatest expression of you? I'm losing my train of thought. And third, what do you want to spend your time doing? do you want to spend 8 hours of your day just miserable? And if you don't fucking have to. Do a new thing. So maybe you have 7 projects going right now and none of them are going to work. You could, on the one hand, go, oh, but I've spent all this time, and if I don't have a good outcome, then it's wasted time. Or you could go, fuck that, I'm going to clean the slate and align closer to my integrity my values, what I enjoy doing with my time, and how I can be well remunerated. I think that it's tricky with internet marketing, just as an example, because we have a big house here in Venice and multiple roommates, and occasionally people will come through that are traveling from other places, and we have a lot of people that, you know, live and work via their laptop. I would say maybe half of them have seemed like they were pretty happy folks. That's a big judgment call, but if you have to spend 8 hours a day, you know, doing things that you don't like online, I don't know. That's a huge trade-off for me.
It's a pretty good ratio, though, if it's maybe half of them, because I can tell you straight up, a lot fewer than half of the people working in McDonald's are enjoying what they're doing, and I would venture to say that a lot fewer than half of the people working in the world's largest accounting firms are enjoying what they're doing.
It's a fair assessment. I think you're probably right.
Now, I want to make clear as well that I'm not miserable by any stretch, and I have a fantastic life. But you know what it's like once you reach a certain level. I mean, I'm at the level now where I have an online income, right? But and whereas a few years ago my income was tied directly to my hourly labor,
Sure.
And I was trying to get out of that trap. But now I'm in the trap where my income is tied to a system that requires maintenance and upgrade, that requires my input, and I don't really enjoy it very much. And I'd like to be at the point where I wake up in the morning and I was literally just saying this to my business partner the other day. I said to him, when was the last time you woke up excited about what you had to do for work? Like, when was the last time you were like, oh shit, it's so cool, I get to do the thing I wanted to do? I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast the other day, and he was interviewing I think it's the lead guitarist of the Black Keys, and this guy was saying he wakes up and he heads over to the studio and he's just so excited to create and do things, and you know, just grab his guitar and riff and, you know, write some lyrics down. And okay, and albeit he's an extremely rare example, but we've spoken about before, though. I spoke about precedence, right? Like, and I've always had this deep feeling, and it might be erroneous, right? It might be some weird bug in the software that's running my brain, but I've always thought, if someone can live this experience, then I can too. You know, I'm within reason. You know, like, I'm not going to be Brad Pitt. I can't really live that experience, but within reason, if some guy is doing something he really loves out there and making a great living at it and excited and fucking inspired to be doing it, then why the fuck can't I? You know, like, I've got 2 arms and 2 legs and 2 eyes, and I'm a human, and I'm going through I'm in the same place as him. In the same realm as him. Why can't I have a similar experience? You know, and I think for me, all my effort is focused on making that happen, and it ties into one of our previous conversations about well, I think it was entitled Hope, or Keeping the Faith. It's like, for me, that's one of the things that keeps me going, is that even though my life is relatively good and I'm grateful for it, I want it to be better, and there's certain things I want to eliminate from it, and certain... Does that make sense?
Sure. Well, it sounds also like you just want, and I'm completely guessing here, but are you in search of more peak experiences? Do you want more sustained fun? Do you feel like the doldrums of work are just sort of dragging you down to the point where you're like, I don't know. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting, and certainly something that I can empathize with.
Man, I personally am happiest when I'm creating something. You know, like, whether it's a conversation with you and we're creating an episode of Digital Communion, or I'm sitting down to design a new jiu-jitsu product, you know, and like thinking what's going to be in it, and like doing the logistics and the schematics for that, and like just creating that. That's when I'm happiest. I think you've mentioned something similar, and I think if I can get it to the point where I'm doing more of that and less highly technical data entry and stuff for a website, I think that's when I'm going to be happier, when I can use that when I can align myself and get into that flow, as you said, when my what did you say? Thoughts, actions, and words.
Yeah, thoughts, actions, and words are all in alignment. That's, you know, that's in integrity. So why can't you outsource the things that you do?
I do, a few of them. I think the main reason is that the business is not yet at the point where it can support outsourcing of all the drudgerous work.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure. Trust me.
Right. You
yeah.
probably thought of everything at this point.
But it's kind of at the point where you've seen it in your own life, and I'm sure we've spoken about it before. But things generally, like projects and endeavors, they follow a cycle whereby you start out, you have a little bit of success, and then you hit a bit of a plateau, and then you've got to make changes or integrate new things or forge ahead. And that process is usually quite tumultuous and quite difficult, but it's only through going through that process that you can break through to the next level, right? And I think I'm just at that process now, and I'm getting a bit impatient. I think the answer is probably patience, Thomas. I think patience is one of the things that are lacking. But again, I this is one of my gifts, and one of my curses is that I think too much, because I can always see two sides of the story or the scenario, and the side that I'm seeing is how many people made something happen because they were impatient, right? How many people were just like not enjoying, and how many people like were overly patient and sat there and said like one day it's going to get better, and then like before they knew it 30 years had passed and they were being given their gold watch and sent out into the pasture. Do you know what I mean?
Well, you could talk about a different kind of patience, like Thomas Edison's, you know, where he's willing to work on a thing in hundreds of iterations until he's able to make it work. And that is a completely different kind, right? I mean, he may have had the impatience to start on that problem, but most people give up after 3 failures. And he's willing to go through dozens and then 100 or whatever the mythical number is these days. 1,000 different iterations of the light bulb before he, you know, found the one that worked. I believe Seth Godin calls that plateau that you're talking about the dip. And it's an extremely difficult period of time in any creative process where you're pretty much weighed down. Stephen Pressfield calls it the resistance. I've been listening to Seth Godin recently, and I filled out something called the Ship It Journal, which is a series of questions that you must ask about whatever your creative endeavor is. And one of them is, what does perfect look like? So maybe not this episode, but another one, you could describe what those things are. It's good for you to know either way. Highly, highly recommend this to everyone listening. It's this great battery of questions from what the fuck is it that you're doing? What does it look like when it's perfect? What does it look like if it's good enough in order for you to put it out there in the world? And the thing that I wrote a blog post on recently was, you know, what are your fears? What am I afraid of and why? And when you really define those things, when you really put sort of edges on them and a name to it, let's call it Frank. Fuck you, Frank. Once you're able to do that, it's just all of a sudden I felt such a sense of freedom with, you know, my own ideas and what I'm trying to do. They're typical, Nick. Like, we all want to be loved and appreciated, and we want to be respected, but mostly we just want people to pay attention. And all of my fears were based on those things, you know. The biggest why for me, and what I'm sorry to go off topic a little bit, but the things that I'm afraid of are all based on this idea of who I think I ought to be and where my time ought to be spent. So disassociating from that very powerful and illusory concept is extremely difficult.
That's interesting you mentioned that, Thomas. I don't want to interrupt you, but I don't want to lose this thread either, and so tied to what you just said. I just had a conversation with my business partner not 2 hours ago, and I said to him, The thing that's bothering me now more than anything is that I'm becoming the thing I was so proud that I wasn't. I'm becoming the guy chained to his computer and I always just kind of believed that, if you were smart enough and if you gathered enough information and applied the combination of your intelligence and that information properly, you could circumvent the traditional models that have been laid out in front of us. The main model being work hard and eventually you might get your little reward at the end of the rainbow, right? Like,
Right.
and this is another thing that I keep thinking is there's no guarantee of that even. There's no guarantee, because if I had a guarantee that, Nick, if you work your ass off for the next 5 years, and I'm talking like 80-hour weeks every week, no vacations, you just worked your ass off, but at the end of it, you'd have whatever success in whatever form you chose, right? Fuck, sign me up, I'd do it. If the end was in sight, I would fucking do it without a shadow of a doubt. But
Wow.
it's not guaranteed. That's the thing. So for me, I just have that, like, it's not necessarily a sense of dread, but it's like, I don't mind working hard, but there needs to be some sort of, I guess it's a cutoff point. Like, when do you say to yourself, like, this project isn't working, or I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
for just so that my opinion's known on this, I would never work 5 years of 80-hour weeks unless I cared about what the fuck I'm doing, because all the things that you have to give up in order to do 80-hour weeks for 5 years, what that will do, that devastating impact on your health, your relationships, your spirituality, whatever. If you don't believe in it, man, you're going to be a miserable person. On the other hand, I would rather fail. Maybe this is the same hand. I've decided recently that I would much rather fail 10 times trying for the things that I believe in than not knowing what that would have been like and staying on the path that is very much well known to me. And I think you would agree ultimately.
Yeah,
if you really
I think
thought
I would
about it.
agree. No, I do. I guess this is Nick being a bit of a downer week. But yeah, I've also been doing this. It's quite an interesting program. It's called Genius Brain Power, and it's binaural beats. I'm sure you're familiar with binaural beats. In fact, I know I've used them before, but I've been doing it a lot, and it actually feels like my brain is a little bit fried. And I think it's kind of put me in a bit of a strange mood. You know what it's like when you're in that mood, and people can tell you whatever. People can tell you it's all going to be okay and just go meditate or light a candle or fucking do whatever. But it's really hard to not to be objective about it, because it's what you're experiencing. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely agree. And the only things I've ever found that snap me out of that are very cold water, very,
Interesting.
very difficult exercise, or probably like illicit drugs. So one of those
I'm willing
three.
I'm willing to try all three at the same time.
2 out of 3 ain't bad, but
Yeah,
yeah, go for all 3. I appreciate you being so honest in this episode, because I think that most people aren't, first of all, and it's okay to be frustrated and afraid and feeling like you're stuck and that you would trade anything to get out of this position, but ultimately you will bring yourself out of it, because you're one of the smartest, sharpest people I know, and
Thanks, my brother.
all you have to do is listen.
Mm.
Well, that's not all. You have to
No,
listen,
no,
and then you have
and then
to
you have
act.
to act. Yeah, praxis, dude, and that is the truth. Thank you, my brother. I enjoyed that very much. I appreciate the advice. Guys, thank you for listening to Digital Communion. Please head over to digitalcommunion.com, and if you enjoyed anything you heard today, leave a comment on the episode. And we'd also appreciate it if you head over to iTunes, search for Digital Communion, and then leave a review. That really makes the show more popular, which means more people get to hear it, which means Thomas and I make more of them.
Yeah. Oh, and quick question for the audience: when on top of today's theme, when have you, if ever, become the thing that you never wanted to be? And if that's happened to you, please leave a comment and let's talk about it, because I'm pretty sure we've all been there.
Until next time, blessings.
Blessings. Keep the faith.
Later, my brother.